And my two cousins, Gail and Greg, would you stand? The couple of the year, I call them. And my announcement is that I'm engaged as of February 14th to James Beller. All right, my theme tonight is Before I Let Go, and that's why I had that music played. As you know, it's no secret that Frankie Beverly, how many Philadelphia people we got in the house, is the one that really deserves the credit for that particular song. But I also have to give Beyonce credit because what she did I thought was brilliant. She acknowledged the HBCU bands and blew that song up. So we got to give her a little credit too for doing that. But the reason why I chose that theme is that, that song is about relationships. And, particularly perhaps between maybe two lovers or what have you. But tonight, I want that song to be related to families, okay? Because we talk a lot about families and loving one another, but as you know, sometimes we go through some tough times as families. Sometimes we want to let go. But I'm here to say to you, don't let go. Because this 50th Jubilee is something to be very proud of. Let's give the family a hand right now. I'm going to talk about the Let Go Family Challenge. Beyonce has that challenge going, the Let Go, Before I Let Go challenge. But I'm going to give you 7 things to think about when we talk about families and letting go. First thing is ancestry. I had the opportunity to do that ancestry.com thing. Has anybody else done that? Where you take a bit of your saliva and you send it away and they do an analysis and they tell you they go all the way back to Africa, and then they connect you to some of the tribes in Africa. So I had a chance to do that. My daughter first did it, and I did it so that I could compare it to her because she has Wilson and Foreman ancestry. So I wanted to try to get a sense of what was different. But it kind of came back the same because, many of us are from the eastern part of the United States, southeastern part of the United States, where, some of the first slaves came to, were brought here and settled. So what it said is that I have so much of Congo, Bantu, so much of Ghanaian ancestry, and they, of course, they put a little bit of Caucasian ancestry as well. So that was very interesting because of my cousin Frida. Stand up, Frida. Frida did a lot of work. I don't know where Frida is, but Frida deserves a lot of credit because she did a lot of research on our family history. And of course, I don't want to repeat any of that because we just went through some information that I think our youth really need to make sure that they try to remember, because this is phenomenal to be able to have that information. So as a professor in my class, I always ask the students as an icebreaker to talk about who they are. That's the question. Who are you? And you'd be very interested to know that a lot of people don't know much about who they are. I start out with, tell me a little bit about your ethnicity, okay? What do you, who do you identify with? And nowadays, people are getting a little bit more questionable about who they really identify with, especially if they have, interracial backgrounds and things like that. But I make them think about that. I also make them think about, how they got the name, and Weiwei did, Bishop, I should say. Bishop did put something in there about my name, but I recall my mother saying to me that one of the relatives gave her the name Deborah for me. Can you tell me who that was that gave you the name Deborah? She's not listening to me, but I thought you said one of the relatives gave you the name Deborah for me. But as you can see in the book, what Deborah means, and that's real important. And I think as homework for each of you, you should find out what your name means, okay? And if you can't find out, go to the person that named you, okay? That's the person that really should know, where that name comes from. And then be proud of it, own it. Make sure that this is something that makes you proud as a person. I know a lot of people are really concerned about the different names that some mothers and fathers are given to children, but ask them why they named you that particular name, because that's really important in terms of ancestry. The other challenge that I want to put before you is for adults, that we continue to be models for our youth. I love having young people around me. The one thing that I didn't put in this book is that I am now the grandparent of 3 children, okay? I have a grandson that came to us through the marriage of my daughter. He is now 16 years old, and you can imagine having a 16-year-old to be your first grandchild, I wanted to really do so much for him, and yet, he was pulling back because, I had not raised him. But I let him know that once you come into our family, the Wilson family, the Skinner family, you're good as gold. There's no boundary there. You are family. And so now I have a boy, Jaden, who will be 3 in August, and I have a little 3-month-old Michaela, who, I just adore. So I'm asking our adults, and I know we already have models for you, because where's Kevin? Kevin? Okay, I want Kevin to stand because I know that he's taking the torch for Ernest in terms of working with youth in the community. Let's give him a hand, because I know I'm hearing about him coaching girls and maybe boys in track. So these are the kinds of things that we want to continue to promote for our youth. I'm thinking about other people, and I know you know of people who are just spending time with youth out in the community, reading with youth. That's a big thing, and I'm really encouraging our people to do that, because in growing up, we had to choose the people that we could identify with so that we can follow our dreams. One of the persons that I particularly followed was not only my mother, but my aunts. They were good models for me in terms of, I knew that I had to find a job, and I knew that once I got that job, I had to work hard because they were models for me. But my Aunt Ethel took it a little bit further. She was one of the first in our family to complete a 4-year degree. So she was my model. I knew, I said, oh, I'm gonna have to do that because, you know, my model was my Aunt Ethel. So I'm asking our adults here to continue to serve as models in any way. It may not be in education, maybe in something that you do well. Use yourself as a model for our youth. And then the third thing is giving back. In some ways, that's the same thing. However, sometimes we have to reach and give back even more. And I use myself as an example there. When I lost my husband in 2012, suddenly to cancer, it was very difficult. You know, after 32 years of marriage, you know, raising 2 girls, you know, traveling the world together, and suddenly I was alone. But what I did the year that he passed is I started doing a lot in terms of giving back. And one of the things I did was I went on a mission to Haiti. How many people in here have been to Haiti? I can understand why it's very difficult to take that trip to Haiti. It's no vacation. When you get there, you realize you go back into time because, as we know, many of the missions that go to Haiti is about building because of the earthquake that occurred many, many years ago. But when you fly to Haiti, it's almost like that earthquake had just happened like a week ago, because everything in the particular area that I went to was still looking like no one had been there to help. And everything just seems to be so chaotic. However, what our church did, we chose one thing to do. We wanted to build a community center so that the people could come and worship, have one place to come to worship. And that's what we did. We built a community center, and that was something that kept me focused during the time that was very difficult for me in terms of my loss. And the people were very grateful for it. And that's what I mean about giving back. Maybe not all the way to Haiti, but there are places right in the United States that you can give back to. The other thing is developing a motivation to continue this particular activity, which is your family reunion. I know that it's difficult. You know, our family is the Skinner family, and there are other families around here. You know, don't let people stop you, even if you have 5 people who want to come together. Continue to do it, because if you stop, then that's going to stop the legacy. This 50-year experience didn't come from, you know, stopping. You continue to do it. So I'm encouraging others, you know, if you're parts of other families, continue to get together, even if it's just for a cookout. Now, our family reunion started as a cookout. Deborah remembers coming to Norfolk, and many of you remember coming, and then we would go to the beach afterwards. You know, it wasn't a big, huge thing. This is worth celebrating the 50th Jubilee, but next year you may decide you don't want to have something this big. You might just want to have a cookout, and that's fine. The whole purpose of coming together is to say, I love you one more time. I try to make, you know, this reunion because it reminds me of the first time I ever came down to Windsor with my grandmother. And in the backyard of Uncle Norman's backyard. And sitting there waiting, you know, after the different prayers. I was hungry. I remember I was 9 years old. I was trying to figure out, well, when are they going to stop praying? I'm hungry, But later on, I learned, that those prayers were for me and for all the other youth that were around there. So continue the motivation to I call it to meet up as a family. The other thing is to continue, don't forget the loved ones. And I really appreciate the candles here because the candles to me represent the spirit of the ones that have gone on to be with the Lord. And I know that my grandmother's sitting there. When I think about my grandmother, I have a lot of fond memories. I really, for the youth here, if you have grandmothers, you cherish those grandmothers because there's nothing like it, especially when I think about my friends who never had the opportunity to be loved and nourished by their grandmother. One story that I have to share about my grandmother is that she took a lot of pride in her cooking. And it wasn't just her that took pride in her cooking. Everybody that came to her table enjoyed it. And she used to tell me the stories of cooking for the mayor or cooking for a judge in Windsor. And she was so excited about that. She used to tell me, she said, Deborah, I could read a recipe and never forget it. And my mouth just went open. I was like, God, my grandmother's a genius. She can read. And when I thought about that and started to learn more about segregation and how women were not allowed to learn how to read and go to school. And here's my grandmother telling me she could read a recipe one time and never forget it. She had an 8th grade education. She read the newspaper every day. She listened to the news every day, and she could tell you anything about what was happening in the world. How many times do we read the newspaper? How many times do we really sit down and listen to what's happening in the world? So she passed that legacy to me. I knew that I had to achieve because of the legacy that she left with me. And I have here for number 6, money. I know that, sometimes we get to the point where, we just feel like, at a loss because of, loss of jobs, or we're not able to buy the things that, we want to buy. Somebody mentioned, I think, someone mentioned about how we went from the outhouse to the White House. And that is true, I can recall, let's face it, a lot of us know what it's like to be poor. A lot of us know what it's like to live in a crowded home situation. But look at us now. But what I want to say about money, especially for the youth, get it honestly. Don't go out and do things because you feel that you want to buy something that you really can't afford it. Earn it. There are plenty of jobs out here that you can learn skills from. I'm just thinking about my 16-year-old grandson. Sometimes I just want to take over and raise him because right now at 16, by the time I was 16, I must have had 3 or 4 jobs. Anybody else like that? I must have had 3 or 4 jobs, and he hasn't had one yet. And I think about that because that's where you learn all about life when you get a job. Because you learn about how to handle your money, you learn about relationships on the job, how to get along with people. That's important for life, So I'm thinking here for money, young people, please, go out and get a job that may not pay as much as you want, but you can learn a lot from doing that, from earning your own money. And in time, my last challenge before I let go is spending time with the people that you love. No matter what you do, for the children, somebody asked me, well, did you have any trouble raising your girls? No, I did not. And the reason why is that we spent a lot of time up front with them when they were little. We did things with them that didn't cost a penny. We took them to museums. We took them everywhere with us. And we didn't buy Air Jordans for them, We went shopping, but we looked for sales when we went shopping. So I say that the key to raising the child that you want that child to be is to spend time with the child. Of course, we have to work, but there are days that we can spend just for them and do special things for them. So I feel that time is very important. So before I end my presentation, I want you to take a look at the words to "Before I Let Go." The first verse said, "You made me happy. This you can bet. You stood right beside me. Yeah, and I won't forget." Again, I'm thinking about families. I'm thinking about sometimes we don't do everything the way our parents want us to do it. We make mistakes. But in spite of that, family is still there. Somebody's going to be there for you, okay? And it says, "I really love you. You should know. I want to make sure I'm right." It says girl, but I'm going to say family before I let go. And I say this because, next year, one of us may not be here, okay, for various reasons. And it may be because it's time for that person to get their wings, or maybe they're too sick to come to be with us. So it's important for you to say what you're going to say to a person before you or that person will not be a part of the next family reunion. The next verse says, "Now we've had our good time," and that's what they say. "We're hurting each other. It's a shame. I won't be foolish. No, I want to know. I want to make sure I'm right before I let go." So this ends my speech. I just want you to know that you are being right today because you're in the right place. You've already hugged people. I'm not going to ask you to hug people again, but I'm going to ask you to make a commitment to the Family Let Go Challenge. Learn more about your name. Be a model for youth. Give back to the community. Motivate yourself to be a part of family reunions and planning. Don't forget those people that we lost because they still are within us. Young people, get a job. If you can't get a job, volunteer. I think the best jobs I've ever had is when I volunteered to do something. I talked about the Haiti situation. Even though it was pretty rough, I left with a smile because I knew I had done something for someone. And then time, family, spend time with one another. Doesn't cost any money. Just take the time to be with someone. And with that, would you finish up with playing Beyonce's song? And I love you all. Good night.